Okay, so good morning, good afternoon to everyone. It's real good to have you here with us. I know lots of people here, but not everyone. So if you do not mind, I'm going to introduce myself first, and then I'll leave the stage for the ones that deserve that. So, my name is Marcos. I am the co-founder of Compassion. Compassion is a network of 36 executives, former executives, and founders of companies. We are spread as far as China, India, down to South Africa, Latin America, up to Canada and the US, then Middle East, and then Europe. We are based out of Germany. And we have also another office there in São Paulo, Brazil. And what we do, we're basically looking to how we can help companies grow in a sustainable way. In the healthcare space specifically, we have the vision that we can help more innovations reach more people faster. And I'm going to talk more about that at the end. Surprisingly about this topic is that when you talk about longevity, we know it's not just talking about aging or silver aging or health care only. We are talking about something much broader than that. And surprisingly is that out of our 36 partners, we have roughly 80% of our group is 50 plus, meaning because we know that there are creative ways to engage experience, to apply experience. And on that topic, why I'm not talk just about healthcare, I would like to introduce the two speakers we have here today. First of all, Ana Joao, she's based out of Portugal. She is the founder and the leader of 40 Plus Lab. And Ana, if I'm not wrong, at least we know ourselves maybe for the past almost 10 years, and you are definitely the first person.
Yesterday. We met yesterday, Marcos, please. Yesterday, last night.
Yeah. And you are definitely the first person I have heard talking about longevity-driven economy.
Yeah.
And that's what is this about. So, and then I'll also talk, we're going to also have Carlos here. Carlos is the founder of Lemon Dare to Imagine, someone that I have worked with when he was, I think, more than 10 years in Singapore. And now he has been leading this company out of London. And just a little bit of operational things here. So all the report and the supporting material will be made available to you. We're gonna have a QR code that you can just click and download it. But also you can look into our website, www.compassion.com/health. Then you're gonna have access to how to get the reports and also more information about all the reports that we're gonna be issuing about the topic of longevity as we move forward. Okay, so now I think the floor is yours, Carlos.
So let me unmute first. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here, and thank you, Marcos, for the introduction. I trust you can all see my screen. I'm going to put it on presentation mode. Can you all see it? Yeah, okay, great. So longevity. So we're going to talk today about longevity as a consumer category. You know, when we're talking about longevity, first of all, the first thing that actually came to my mind whenever I hear the word longevity is the song from Queen, oops, Who Wants to Live Forever? And that's really what comes to my mind, first of all. So, and that is the question, isn't it? Who wants to live forever? And that's been a question for humanity since the time of the pharaohs in Egypt, all the way to you know, probably the novel of Frankenstein, and people have been, you know, kind of wanting to know about, or the Holy Grail. People have wanting to know about, you know, how can I live forever? How can I not die? And that's basically because life is such an amazing gift that it's quite difficult for us in our minds to actually conceive the fact that it's going to end one day. And that's really, you know, the question for us. And it's revealed something timeless in our relationship with longevity, which isn't just about adding years. It's about answering a deeper emotional need. You'll notice I've got Dare to Imagine behind me, and that's because I believe nothing happens without imagination first. And in consumer research, or even in terms of humans making a decision, the motivation always starts with an emotion. So people don't think about longevity, or people don't buy something for longevity, unless there is an emotion behind it. And the emotion, first of all, it's got to do with a desire to preserve what matters. And it's not just about life, but it's about meaning. So people want the good to last. So they don't want life to end. And it's a longing for agency over time. So they want to influence their future. We want to not just inherit it. It's a hope for vitality. So it's not just about chasing more years. It's about chasing better years. And very importantly, it's about having the ability to write chapters, that we want the energy to still have chapters to write in our own life. And then it's also about, whereas our parents' generations and our grandparents' generations, they kind of felt resignation about growing old. Today's consumers feel possibility. So, life expectancy has never been this long, and therefore we now feel that there is possibility for us. We now, for the first time, we feel there's the possibility of living to 100. For the first time, we've never had so many relatives living up to 100, or very close to 100 years old. I've had at least 4 or 5 in my family. So apparently it's not genetic. So, not that great, but, it's amazing that we have relatives living that long now. So there's suddenly that possibility. So it's a great time to be alive. And we see so much change happening in the world. And that actually gives us that sense of possibility, that this is now possible to live a long and healthy life. So this means that there are new rules that consumers, the 50+ consumers in particular, are kind of defining for longevity. And that's what we want to talk about now. It's what are these new rules that we are starting to see. And the first of them is that we're not really talking about lifespan anymore. We're talking about health span. And that's, we were just talking about that. It's about vitality, not just longevity. Consumers want energy, cognition, and mobility. And we're going to be talking a little bit further ahead about cognition and how important that is. Also, independence matters. The real goal is about freedom, resilience and quality of life. And there's a big market shift. So products that can optimize living well will outpace those that optimize living longer. So the message to consumers, it's not just about, oh, you're going to live another 10 years with this. No, it's about the quality of life that that product is going to give. So it's being redefined in that way. And so the new consumer currency is about health span, and health span is the new wealth that the consumer is looking for. And then the second thing is that science is actually what sells. So trust is everything. It's there's a lot of talk, and consumers are skeptical about what they see out there. So clinical credibility wins. Validation allows premium pricing, a long-term loyalty. And transparency also builds trust. So there's a lot of products out there that promise a lot of things, and people don't immediately believe in what they see. So you need clinical trials, you need evidence, but it also needs to be evidence that people can understand. So a lot of scientific terminology that nobody can understand, doesn't really help. It needs to be in a language that people understand, and it's transparent and builds trust. And we're going to talk a little bit further ahead about how to build the trust that people can really connect with. But independent certifications, published trials, all of that matters. So it's not just about R&D, it's very much part of the strategy to have science very much at the front of how you position products in the longevity consumer economy. And that is also about stacks, not silos. And this is about people are actually building their own ecosystems of products. So, and this is where I might be trying to reduce, or trying to monitor my levels of glucose through supplements, and I'm having a sensor that tracks my glucose levels, and it's connected to my phone. And I have an app that tells me and gives me advice on how my levels of glucose are fluctuating, and it also tells me what kind of food I should be eating and so on. And it also tracks my sleep and tells me how my sleep affects my glucose levels and so on, or how my exercise in the morning actually does something to my glucose levels. And immediately I'm doing something. I've got supplements, I've got a sensor, I've got 2 or 3 apps, and that's an ecosystem about managing my glucose levels. And then I can also have a watch that tracks my sleep. So that's another one. And I can also do it for tracking my exercise and and help me lose weight and so on. So all of that are ecosystems that I'm building using different things and different types of products. And all of these ecosystems are actually personalized to each consumer. And the consumer themselves are the ones who are building this. So it's not single fixes anymore. It's systems that people themselves are building. And it's part of an integrated lifestyle. The consumer themselves are going after these things. And the glue that actually puts these systems together is data, particularly healthcare data. And that's going to be one of the big currencies of the future. It already is, actually, but it's going to become even bigger. And how that data is going to be protected and managed, and who's going to manage that is going to be key as well. And the brands that can connect the dots in these ecosystems are going to have a key role to play as well. And then we also have the all ages in. So we've been talking about the 50+ consumer, the silver economy. It's actually going to be more than that, because yes, boomers and Gen X are the generations that are making the biggest spend at the moment. They're the largest share of current spending. They're the ones with the deepest pockets. But the millennials and Gen Z are tomorrow's growth engine. They're the ones who are going to be driving that growth tomorrow. And actually today they already have an attitude of wanting to look towards a healthy lifestyle. They themselves are into biohacking. They're into wearables and preventative health. It's funny to see how many young people these days are careful about alcohol, how many of them are not smoking, and how many of them are actually, looking about how many years they want to live and so on. So it's something that brands need to pay attention to, and also this is the future of their market. So it's no longer for the old; it's for everyone. And then we have also, and part of the study that we did, we looked mainly at 2 key regions, USA and Europe, and then Portugal as well. And then the reason for that, USA and Europe are really the 2 main markets at the moment for longevity, consumer economy. And there's a big reason for that, because that's really where the spend is happening at the moment. It's also Europe in particular is where the longest life expectancy is. US is slightly less. And then outside of those 2 regions, the longest life expectancies are in Japan and Australia. The rest of the world has got a relatively lower life expectancy. USA is what we call the independent achiever. They're going to be the largest spenders. They also tend to be the ones where innovation gets launched quicker. They tend to be less, or should I say, less regulatory in terms of letting new products come to market. And so there's a faster economy happening there with bigger spending. Europeans tend to be more quality conscious. They will prefer natural and validated solutions. They will look for the guide of pharmacists, and they will be slower in terms of adopting new tech and so on. And then we have Portugal within Europe, that is one of the oldest populations in Europe. Very high life expectancy, but lower health span. So on average, people will live longer in Portugal, but the last 10 years of their life tends to be spent in hospitals. Not very high quality of life toward the end, which is a shame. And that's something that happens today. And it's a very traditional Mediterranean diet, very reliant on public health care. affordable wellness, and very socially connected, very family cultural participation that tends to be prioritized over high-tech interventions as well. We will do a little bit more about these regions further ahead as well. So before we do more, let's talk a little bit about hotspots of growth within the consumer longevity consumer economy. And of course, first of all, is the supplements and nutraceuticals. That is the category for consumers that, you know, they are really, that's leading most of the consumption and growth. And that's really where we're expecting to forecast most of that growth, both in USA and Europe and also in Portugal. You know, within USA, dietary supplements is expected to grow to 124 billion by 2033, and in Europe, up to 111 billion by 2030. Portugal, much smaller than that, but still over $1 billion by 2030 for dietary supplements. That is going to be led mainly by things like NAD plus supplements, like NAD plus boosters and senolytics. You know, they are gaining traction as cutting-edge cellular repair tools. So people are very much seeing them as energy boosters, but also, you know, helping you delay the aging process. Things like collagen remains a pillar, especially in beauty and joint health lines. But within these, again, very important consumer trends down to increasing demand for transparency, validating evidence, clean labels. So that again is very important to make sure that, you know, are these NAD plus boosters really making a difference? Can I really trust the claims that this is making? Is this really going to help me? And then the wearable tech trends. So there's explosive growth within that market. You know, it reached about $61 billion in 2022, expected to grow and continue to grow. And with AI integration, it's going to do even more. It's part of an active health management, and it's kind of almost like live health management. You know, it's at home tests, and wearable create constant feedback loops that you have, which kind of transforms that health management into a daily activity, and it's kind of a gamification effect. I'll give you a personal example. I have a sleeping track app that is connected to my watch. So I sleep with my watch and it's connected to my phone. Every morning I check it just to see what the score was. So I kind of I have a score in the morning as to how well I slept the night before. So it's kind of a game that I play. So in the morning I wake up and I check my score. It's a bit silly, you know, but it's almost like I'm playing a game with myself just to see what was the score in the morning. And it's almost like, you know, was my dip in heart rate good enough, and so on. So it gives me all sorts of different measures to check. But you know, it's something that is going to be more and more of that trend happening, and it's going to start connecting, and it's part of an integration, because actually, if I go and see my doctor, I can show that app to my doctor, and it's got the record of, you know, for over a year of every night what my sleeping record was, and so my doctor can see, you know, if I have, so if I've got sleep apnea, so therefore my doctor can see what my sleeping trend was for over a year, and if there's anything that needs to be done, and so on. So wearables, diagnostics, in-home tests, all of these things are part of that ecosystem, and it's going to continue to grow as well. And then we go into a little bit more adventurous fields, which used to be niche, but it's no longer so much of a niche, and that's biohacking. So by definition, biohacking is the practice of self-optimizing body and mind using lifestyle, nutrition, supplements, tech, and sometimes medical interventions. So it's seen explosive growth. It's estimated that in 24-25, it was worth $25 to $33 billion, and it's expected to reach up to $75 billion in 2030. That's a CAGR of 18 to 19%. And it's going from things like wearables and data tracking, so things like continuous glucose monitors that I was just talking about, heart rate variability tracking, And then things like nootropics, like supplements designed to enhance cognitive functions, lifestyle hacks like intermittent fasting, cold plunges, and sleep optimization, all the way to DIY biology, which is for the more adventurous if they really want to go into that. But it's just to give you an idea, biohacking has led from underground forums to TikTok feeds. So I challenge you to go and if you have TikTok on your phone, to go and search for biohacking. There'll be people giving you advice on cold plunges. That's become quite a bit of a fashion to go and do, because of all the different benefits that it brings to your health. And then we have the H-Tech, and that's technology for independence, dignity, and connection. And essentially, this is things like smart homes with sensors for fall detection, voice-activated assistants, things like AI monitoring, to help you be more independent in your home, and also, with assistive devices and so on. So again, we're going to see a little bit further ahead the importance of the home and independence as well. And then again, of course, if you're going to live up to 100, someone's got to pay for it, and that's the other part of the equation. And also, real estate needs to be part of that equation. That's going to be part of the economy. But this is something important. So there's financial longevity. There's going to be products about finance for longevity, pensions, and savings for longer lives. And also real estate, what kind of homes people need to have for living longer lives. And also, if you think, if people live longer, then are there enough homes for everybody? And what kind of homes are we going to be, and what type of communities are we going to be talking about as well? And so, we've seen all of these things. It's I like to think that it's a great time to be alive. We're living longer. There's all of these changes coming. All of these great things for us to live up to 100 or even more. The world has had amazing changes in the last 100 years. Probably just over 100 years ago, people didn't have hot showers. And actually, in the last 20 years or so, changes have even been more accentuated, more accelerated. And in fact, just in the last 5 years, there's been even more changes. And so to keep up with those changes, we've done some of those ourselves. And as a result, we decided to incorporate some of those changes in our study as well. And we've actually created synthetic personas, which just 3 years ago didn't exist. And thanks to the release of artificial intelligence, we were able to create synthetic personas for the USA, Europe, and Portugal. And essentially what this is using data that's already out there. So 5 years ago, there was data, and it's data that's on the internet, particularly from Wikipedia, Reddit, and social media. But the artificial intelligence, particularly based on large language models, is able to pick that data and use it intelligently to create personas, and then use those personas to give answers that are very close to reality. Now, we don't actually replace real people with this. What we do is we use this synthetic data essentially to explore, what some of those answers would be. When we then want to go further with research, we always use real people. But for the purposes of this study, we decided to use synthetics, and we're showing them to you. And it's actually quite exciting that we can do this today, once we've got artificial intelligence at our fingertips. So from these personas, we've created a group for the USA, for Europe, using the big 5 countries, and another one for Portugal. Essentially, we created groups of 8 people, just like real people, focus groups of 90 minutes, a mix of professionals, mix of genders, all of them 55-year-olds plus. And all of them were proactive health managers. All of them are they are interested about their health, and they are active people that do something about their health. So what we found from them is that there are 5 key areas that are important for them. So confirms what we saw before, that health span is more important than lifespan. So it's about quality of years than about the quantity of years. But one thing that we found very interesting is that cognitive health is first. So Alzheimer's and memory loss is their biggest fear. Desire for products that keep the mind sharp is their key priority. And then independence was also extremely important. They don't want to be a burden, particularly to their children. That was extremely important. And actually, that was very important in Portugal in particular. And then trust through proof. So doctors and pharmacists were the most trusted voices, and clinical studies and transparency are mandatory. And then finally, social connection is medicine. So family, friends, and community to them were equal as diet and exercise. Isolation was viewed as a major health risk. And that is very interesting because that comes very much, I don't know if you've seen recently the Harvard study on happiness. That's actually confirmed that the people that live the longest and are the happiest are those that have the best relationships. So, if you want to be happy and live long, make sure you've got good friends and family. So going a little bit further into that, so cognitive health is the big unmet need, and this is important for brands to also be aware of. That if given the choice between an active body mobility and anything else versus staying with a sharp mind and intelligence, the sharp mind and intelligence, cognitive health beats everything else. That is the most important thing. People don't want to go into a decline of cognition, not being able to remember who they are, remember the people around them. That is the worst thing that they can think of. So cognitive clarity is the holy grail, the one breakthrough everyone is waiting for. Then we have the home dilemma, and many participants, especially in Europe and Portugal, are torn between emotional attachment to their homes and practical needs. So the home is identity and memory. It's the next big stress. So that's a very important thing to keep in mind. And I think very often we forget about this, the importance of the home and what it means to each person and how much of their identity is actually reflected in the home, particularly as we get older as well. Then the independence, not being a burden. I think it's not so much being independent, but is the fact that I feel that I'm being a burden to others, particularly to my children. I think that is psychologically a very big thing to deal with, and any brands that can bring something that help you to stay independent are definitely going to be a success as well. And that was especially strong in Portugal and the USA, funny enough. So it was framed as not just a self-sufficiency, but avoiding becoming a burden. And then also skepticism versus experimentation. So, and it was across all markets, people criticize marketing hype. So, they're still trying regarding supplements and wearables. So in Portugal, participants dismissed miracle cures, but many still take supplements. So there's kind of a dichotomy, people dismiss it, but they still go ahead and try it. And so there's a kind of, they still continue to consume it, but they don't necessarily believe in it. But I guess it's one of those things where they still try it just in case. But I think if you can convince people anyway and show real proof, then the adoption will be even greater. Same with tech adoption. So wearables and tests spark both excitement and doubts. So there were some concerns in the US about devices becoming a shore or worried about radiation exposure, whereas Europeans enjoyed tracking but doubted the accuracy, and the Portuguese were questioning data reliability. So there's still a mix of health tech inspires and frustrates, and sometimes maybe it doesn't work 100%. So that can be a frustration. And then there's about role models, and we were just talking, I think, more in the beginning about who people trust for evidence. And this is where celebrities or Hollywood stars are not necessarily the best at giving being proof of something. They're dismissed by others as unrealistic. So in Portugal, there was an example of a neighbor a 95-year-old lady, Dona Rosa, who lived until the age of 95, was admired for her resilience, enjoying simple things. So this is a relatable role model that builds Hollywood icons. So again, if people are able to see that and are able to relate to others who say that this product is good, and again, it's the old marketing proof that if word of mouth, people next to you, your friends and family recommend something, then you're far more likely to try it. And then finally, we're looking at the trust hierarchy. It's also crystal clear. So doctors first, pharmacists, then own research, friends and family, and last are brands and online sources. So brands are pretty much starting near the bottom. So there's quite a lot of hard work to do in terms of gaining trust with consumers. And also, couple of slides on tensions and global play. So there's also, the opportunity is massive, but the risks are real. So things like regulatory uncertainty, they differ by region, which creates confusion and barriers to scale. Things like data privacy risks, which are sensitive and also raises trust concerns. Things like inflated claims from some of the players, they cause hype and pseudoscience damage and credibility damage to consumer confidence. So you might end up suffering from what others are doing, from the irresponsibility of others. And then accessibility gaps. So risk of longevity becoming a luxury reserved for the wealthy. That can also become a problem. And actually, there's a very interesting map that shows life expectancy around the globe, and you can see a big gap. If you look at particularly Europe, and then partly the USA, and then the rest of the world, life expectancy is high in Europe and USA, Japan and Australia, and then for the rest of the world, it's considerably lower. In fact, for Africa, you're talking around 50s and 60s, which is a big gap for the rest of the world. And South America and Asia, you're talking 70s, and then Europe is where you're talking 80s. US is lower than 80s, about 78 or something like that. So there's a big gap there, which already happens with life expectancy and is likely to happen with longevity. So that can also be a risk. So longevity can transform lives, but only if it is credible, secure, and inclusive. And so to recap, global play, speed in America and credibility in Europe. So US is the innovation engine. So light regulation accelerates experimentation, first market to launch, and it's a hub for biohacking culture and early adopters. So Europe is good for validation ground because it's got stricter rules, more scientific rigor, good for credibility and trust, and premium positioning. And so a smart strategy could be for launching fast in the US to gain traction, and then secure European validation for long-term trust and validation at global scale. So you can play both fields to do that. Oops. And finally, longevity isn't a fad. It's the next great consumer frontier. The winners will combine science, integration, and strategy. And for the rest of us, the prize is simple. Not just more years in life, but more life in our years. Thank you very much. Leave you this QR code. You can download the report by scanning this. And I think, Ana, you have got the stage next.
Yes, I am. So quickly, I would like to highlight a few things from what Carlos mentioned. First of all, is showing that here we are talking about silver economy, or what now is called longevity economy, but that's why we at the 40 Plus Lab, we coined this new concept of longevity-driven economy. So clearly we see nowadays longevity as a new area of the global economy. And it means that as a new area of the global economy, one is strategic for regions. A region could be a city, a neighborhood, or could be a country, which is nowadays. And also it means that people will demand for solutions to improve longevity. And it takes us to the second topic that Carlos also mentioned, which is the new concept or the way how people are seeing longevity as a concept nowadays. I remember when I started working on this area, we were talking about aging, and the focus was how people age. Then we start talking about longevity as a lifespan. It was very interesting. A few weeks ago, in a workshop that I manage also with people working in longevity and people that are not working in longevity but working in IT and AI. And the first question in this workshop was what longevity means. And people said longevity means being well in all ages, all moments of our lives. So longevity is much more than living longer or a good lifespan. And I honestly think that the concept will be more and more complex. It takes me to another topic that Carlos mentioned. Um, with the longevity, we now have different assets, financial assets. One of them will be our biological age. I'm talking about this quite often. Is sooner or later we will have a Bitcoin linked to longevity, and the question is how we made it value more or less. Will we have a longevity index? The other asset is the brain. So we have nowadays the brain economy. So longevity will also changing the financial area. The other thing I would like to highlight is, and I with Carlos, I work before opening the company for a very, very long time on market research, and it's very interesting how we see people um, buying solutions for longevity. This ecosystem concept, which is more and more in people's mouth. Uh, we have regional ecosystems for longevity. UK has one of them. Um, new projects regarding to how to build a longevity ecosystem, how the different stakeholders interact. Now for the brands, now for those who want to provide solutions to promote longevity, then you need to understand that the consumer are looking at you in an ecosystem perspective. So it means that the person is in the center, and all the things that person buy or consume, because buying and consuming is not the same. Um, in that person perspective, should interact. So it's a little bit more complex than what we are seeing so far. The third aspect I would like to highlight is the role of science. And then you have fake science and real science. And consumer, once again, is looking at longevity as a scientific domain. The problem is, if I have a low literacy on science, I will not understand, I will not be able to understand what is real science and what is not a real science. But I'm looking for this. So not only the brands will need to address this need, but need to prove that they are talking with real science. And just for closing this and open for questions and opening a dialogue between us. Um, we know that longevity is nowadays changing our lives and will change the way we live and how we live and the environment we live in. Um, there are a few things we need to look in more carefully. One of them is ethics. We were talking about data. We were talking about the need of looking at this, how we manage the data, the kind of data that I produce. Shall I share this with my doctor or not? I was in a dinner yesterday, and this very interesting conversation among in the table you have basically two kind of people: those who are Portuguese or living here, and those who are not Portuguese but still living in Portugal. And for those who are not Portuguese but now living in Portugal, we start talking about the doctors, the physicians. Some of them said, no, 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 I kept my physician in my original country. No, I struggled to find another one here in Portugal. What I see with these two insights is very interesting, is the role of the doctors in it and how people will be um, loyal to the doctor if they trust them. This is one of the topics. The other one is more and more when people are more aware of what is longevity, what is needed. Carlos also talked about biohacking. You know, we will need another kind of doctors. We will need in the public service or private service, but we will need doctors that can speak the same language as a longevity fellow speaks. Um, and the final thing I want to address is, and going back to my initial conversation about longevity being a force that will drive global economy. One, we need a new kind of dialogues. I remember the first longevity forums that I went to. It was science talking to science, and for a business person like me, sometimes was a little bit harder to understand what they are talking about because they are talking, science to science. So we need another kind of conversations. We need to bring those who do the research to talk to brands, to people, to government, because longevity, it will be shape our future. And also, we also need um, new solutions or old solutions to improve local economy growth. New channels where I can accelerate the import export of longevity solutions. It could be projects, scientific projects with different countries, or it could be, as Marcos will tell you, new ways to enter in markets. Because doing a landing for a solution or a company that works in the longevity arena, it's not the same that it is for other areas in the economy. So we will need to find who understands the ecosystem, the local ecosystem, and how that person or that company can help me to land and escalate. So this is what I would like to highlight, and I don't want to go further, but the partnership we have here together with the Compassion Lemon and 40 Plus Lab, we really do believe that longevity is a new area in the personal consumer. So longevity is more and more a mindset. They might not call it in the supermarket. You might not know. You might not go there and see a category called longevity. It could be well-being or whatever. The fact is, the products will be there. The solutions will be there. So for those who have a retail and for those who are brands, think about who are your stakeholders. Or a retail, how can you bring ecosystem to the shop? And for brands, who are your stakeholders? With whom do you want to partner to develop new solutions and to build your own ecosystem that will address consumers' desires and needs and motivations? And basically, I think that is it, Marcos. So we have time for a few comments.
Yeah, so I try to answer, I think, most of the questions, but I think it's good to open for additional questions. I just want to share, I just put one slide, a few slides here to share something that you mentioned, Ana, that I think is good to share with the group. So do you know what happened in June 2007? Was the launch of iPhone. So before, and I did a research early in that period, in which we researched Mumbai, Accra in Ghana, and Rio de Janeiro in Brazil to understand how people were consuming healthcare. Meaning that people, even if they're about to get into a stroke or having just a little bit feeling a little bit bad, so they go to the same hospital or they up into the wall and ask their mom, so what should I take? So kind of the relationship with health was something like everything is well until something goes wrong, right? And with the launching of iPhone, things start changing a lot. And don't think just about iPhone as the social media access for people, but also the development of the app stores. And that what we see today is really a massive development of different innovations. So you just put AI here, AI there, and you mix. You say that we are doing quote unquote the Tinder of AIs, and then you come up with a new solution. And that's a little bit of this that we are trying to help do here as well that I want to share on my screen. Uh, so what we see is that even though there are lots of innovations happening all the time, there is still a gap to get those innovations reaching the people in need of those innovations. That's natural. So companies will first launch in the high ticket markets, but then how many years does it take to get into the other markets? We have here in the audience also people that represent patient associations, and you know the feeling that sometimes you read something somewhere, but then how many years that will take to get into your market. So, and that's what we are trying to build here. So we've been seeing that, especially now in the longevity, when you navigate the fog and you understand what is the real science behind of longevity, what is blocking the innovations to get to the people in need? It's really the last mile. It's really to make it commercially viable. So that's what we are trying to bring here. So together with some partners, we are developing a way in which we're going to try to put together innovators and founders, because not just startups, it's really lots of good things that are already in the market, but not reaching people. Commercial partners, meaning distributors. So sometimes when you go to some of those innovation hubs, you see a gap on who's going to bring that to the market, who's going to put that on the back trunk of a car and really deliver that inside of a hospital. Those are distributors. They are very important in this ecosystem. Investors. So when you talk to investors, and this is something that we did a few researches in the past 2 weeks, it's very hard for them to navigate and understand what really matters and what really will stay in the market in the future. And experts. So, and that's a call to action that I got in an event in Porto in October when an expert, she is an innovator, and she said, we're living in the Platon's cave. So we are just speaking to ourselves. So how can we bring this to more people? And that's a little bit of this that I want to share. That's really the old version. So we're going to see something much better very soon. So we are building a way in which a curated list of distributors will be able to access a curated list of innovations. So when a distributor get into this platform, they will be able to see that, for example, there is someone looking for distributing a wearable patch for monitoring heart rate and ECG. From an innovator perspective, we're going to be open to people that are willing to sell your products in more markets. Like when you see here, you see that this is a solution, for example, that they are looking for investment, 2 to 3 million of investment into convertible notes to expand the market. But also you can understand that they are already available in some markets. So as a distributor or as a commercialization platform, how can I help this innovation get to more people faster? So this is just to give a sense of something that we're gonna be launching very soon. But the idea behind of here is really to understand that sometimes we see lots of very good things being discussed into the labs, into the academia, but it takes a lot of time to get that to reach people in the market. So what we're going to have also to educate and help those innovations, startups, and founders to know more. We're going to also have series of discussions. This is what we are having here today is just, I would say, a little taste. Exactly 1 week from today, we're going to have another discussion in which we're going to share what we call the always preliminary technology report. So that's based on all reports that we could find, but also all our personal notes on the events we reach. So when you are part of this group, you are going to be able to not just having understanding of technologies, but also having basic, what we call basic market or growth business uh, methodologies, or how to know more about one market specifically, how to talk about privacy data, how to talk about regulatory intelligence. So again, so Carlos shared that already. If you want to get the reports today, they're free. We have the presentation and also the research report. If you want to know more about the upcoming reports and discussions we're going to bring, just let us know. You can also access our website. And then again, 1 week from now, we're going to have the always preliminary report, longevity health innovations. And then I'm going to talk more about this platform for whoever is interested on that. So I'm going to stop sharing so we can talk. We still have some minutes here. I'm going to go through the questions, but feel free to unmute yourself and make questions if you have any. So first question was from Maria de Mello, whether we're going to make those reports available. Yes. In the QR code, you're going to see not just this report, the presentation, but also additional reports that we're going to be make available. Sonia, you asked about if there is any wearable on measuring stress. Can I ask why? No, I'm just kidding. But yes, there are lots of innovations on the mental health. But again, I think we are in this fine line of what really science-backed type of innovation versus what is just nice to have. And the reason I'm saying this is that I was two months ago in one of the largest accelerators, and I was talking to an innovator, and he was showing something on migraine. When he was showing something on migraine, and he's based out of the UK, I asked, "Oh, why don't you partner, for example, with GSK, because they do have a very important migraine drug, right?" And he said, "No, that's too complicated." Oh yeah, good. So, and by the way, do you have reports or any scientific report that helps understanding what your solution will do? And he said, "No, no, no. We just have one report that we found it." Okay, how are you promoting your stuff? Oh, on Instagram. So you know that's the challenge. So we know that technology allows us to put much more new technologies into the market, but for certain conditions, you do need to have a little bit of a healthcare rigor, even though we may say that's too much time, but that's important. What else? What about microbiome? And Andrea, by the way, there is Molly, feel free to jump in if you want, but we do have experts into the discussions of very tailored, individualized type of solutions based on nutrition and Nora Health. And Molly here, you can speak more about that if you want.
I would love to learn more about that. I think it's, I did a course on the human microbiome not too long ago, and I could understand how much this could go in the future with a lot of research still needed. So very curious about that.
Yeah. And okay, thanks, Andrea. And Sonia, I like your comment about I hope the retirement age is not postponed. By the way, when we were in Porto, there was a very interesting
Almost
presentation
inevitable.
about there was a very interesting presentation about some solutions that we may just need to rethink the way we're going to talk about retirement or the different ways we can engage people. And I use a Compassion as an example. So we have around 80% of the people with 50 plus people, and some people that literally retired, and they say, you know, I have many more extra miles to run. So how can I share my experience? And that's what we try to put together here.
Yeah,
Let me
no,
just.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I just mean at the 67, yeah. That's I don't mean at 50. Sorry. Which
just add a comment on this. There are some discussions right now is that okay, retirement will be a formal step that we need to have because it's how the state works. But in some countries, they're already talking about the second active life. So they are not talking about retirement is a process. It's something that you have to do to get access to certain amount of money. But the laws are changing. And one of the things is the second active life, which is different from the first one. To officially, I think is 65, or some countries, Portugal is 66 point, I don't know, few months. But yes, is a concept that is changing clearly with the longevity.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, and Maria Mello, thanks for your comment. So we're going to invite you for other reports for sure. So thanks for the comments, Sonia, as well. And Molly, it's not more lives, is not more years in life, but more life in years, or living 100 years every year, right? So, and Lucila, you asked whether there are psychological triggers most influence a person's decision to adopt longevity-oriented health habits. Not sure, Carlos or Ana, if you have any comments about that.
One of them is clearly the perception that you are living longer. I think it happens with all of us that we think, okay, I'm going to die around 70s. And when I'm near, I said, yeah, I won't, because I'm too healthy for die. So this is why I'm saying it's a mindset. It's a mindset. It's always everything that we buy and we consume has an emotional reason behind. We can be conscious or unconscious about that, but there is a motivation, is an emotional need. And that is exactly one of the areas we need to go deeper, is really to understand what moves people to. They can be pushed by law, for example, or they can try to do something from themselves. Carlos.
Yes, I think it's definitely a mindset. I mean, these days, if anyone dies in their 70s, we think they were too young. And actually in Singapore, the Chinese community, if anybody died and was over 80, the funeral would be a party. If anybody died and was below 80, it wouldn't be a party, it would be sad. And that just shows you that was the mentality that they would have if you were over 80, that it would be considered that you lived a full life. And if it was below that, then it wouldn't be considered a full life. So that just shows you how the mentality is shifting already in terms of the expectations that people have in terms of longevity, or what is considered a full life as well.
Yeah, and Ricardo made a very good comment here. Ricardo, feel free to unmute yourself. So I've been in telemedicine since 2004 in diabetes treatment automation. The only solution I saw is peer support, but I do not see much of it into the market. Do you know any besides patient like me? One thing, Ricardo, I'm actually supporting a company that is very early stage yet, but one of the key things that they found out is that they are trying to build a way that there will be a social component. Like, for example, a little myself avatar. When I go to Chicago, I like to eat meat a lot. I start getting a little bit belly, my avatar. The social component will be my son reinforcing me. Oh, Marcos. Oh, daddy, you are not doing well. Oh, daddy, you need to change a little bit. So the social component is definitely very critical. So that's one example that comes to my mind as well. Not sure if you have others. But the other additional element before letting you answer is that I see more and more research about the impact of religion as well. And don't take one or other religion, but the notion of religion and the impact it can have in people's life and the meaning of life. So we ran out of time, so I apologize. Maybe next time we should think about more than 60 minutes. But thanks, Carlos, a lot for the research, for putting the research and for presenting it. Thanks, Ana, for the partnership and for bringing some insights. And thanks, everyone, for joining us. Again, you have the QR code. You can download it. We're going to have a little bit different format next week, so we can share our always preliminary technology report and a little bit of how this we call Longevity Rich Partners Hub will work. So I hope you enjoy.